Hey guys, my name is RyanCentral and welcome to HitScan. In this video we're going to highlight patch 3.0. It has a lot of changes in here. We did highlight a few of them before with the economy changes, but there's still a lot that we failed to recognize last time, failed to sort of see them from eye level. There's a lot of really important changes in here that nobody's highlighted up until now that you'll want to know about. So without further ado, let's get started. So now let's go over all of the changes. We'll start with Astra and go down in alphabetical order, and I want to glide through the changes we know about first and then highlight the ones that we missed from playing. Nova Pulse and Gravity Well have had their cooldown increased from 12 seconds to 25, as well as the start costs being decreased from 200 to 150. Now we go over the other changes to the stars and astral form that I missed when playing because I didn't actually play any Astra when I was in there, and yeah, these is where it gets beefy. Stars are now inactive when placed during the buy phase. You can still place them, but you can't use them for the first 1.4 seconds of a round. So when the barrier drops, her stars charge, and then they become active and usable after a short duration. Whilst attacking, Astra can now see the spike's location in her astral form, and this representation doesn't animate, so you won't be able to see if the enemy team is faking a defuse or not like you used to be able to. Man, that was a crazy thing that was added in there. So yeah, it's more quality of life. The more massive nerf, I think, overall, is that you get one less star, a granted signature charge decrease from 2 to 1, and the cooldown on the dissipate recall for the stars has gone from 8 to 15. So they're the changes to Astra. If you want to skip along to Breach, that's more than fine, use the timestamps, but I do want to give my 2 cents here. From the initial changes that I spotted, I did feel that the devs could have gone a little bit harder on Astra considering how potent she was. After looking at these changes though, I still think she's a great agent. But obviously she's been pulled down a peg or two, and I'm super happy about this. Even as somebody that plays Astra, there's a lot in here that looks on the face of it pretty rough. But in all honesty, I do think that it is something that I do think it's tolerable. There's worse agents that have it worse. So Astra, I think, gets off pretty scot-free, but is going to be a lot weaker with these changes, which I'm personally very happy about. But of course, we move on to Breach. We start with the Flashpoint. You have 2 charges instead of 3. They now cost 250, and also the projectile speed of the flashes has been decreased from 2,500 to 2,000. Overall, I don't know how much that means in seconds, but it does obviously suggest that it's going to take a lot longer for people to get flashed, and it is going to give the enemy a little bit more wiggle room to react to the flash coming through from hearing the sound, the flash traveling. They can pull away, look away at the right time, and do a bit better there. For Fault Line, the full charge time has been decreased from 1.5 second to 1 second. The width has been increased. The telegraph windup time has also been decreased from 1.3 seconds to 1. Concussion has gone up from 3 seconds to 3.5, so the enemy's stunned for longer. And the unequipped timer after firing the Fault Line has gone from 1 second to 0.7. The cooldown has gone up, much like all of the other signature abilities. We know about that last one. So Flashpoint, a little bit more weaker. It takes a bit more of a while to travel, and Fault Line is really good right now. This is a really nice change to it, and it means for more reactionary fault lines that can actually have a good amount of impact and more skill shots with it. It's not an ability that people are really interested in, but I do think that this is one of the poignant ability changes that we've seen, other than of course Aftershock, which as we've highlighted now explodes 3 times with each blast dealing 60 damage. Blasts are 0.6 seconds apart. The explosion radius has been increased so it will hit a lot further, and the unequipped time after firing has been decreased from 1.1 second to 0.9. The cost has doubled, but this ability should be a lot more intuitive to use in a bind. Instead of using it to clear an angle or a corner where you know somebody's on it, yet they still manage to survive by being able to weave out of the way of the Aftershock. This is going to be a whole lot more unforgiving. And then finally, Rolling Thunder, the width of all explosions has been increased to 2300. Basically what this means is instead of a cone, it's a massive square, as you've seen on screen, which basically means that it takes up a lot more room. And yeah, I really like all of these changes to Breach. What I like is before it was a lot of power going into the flashes, he became very much a flash bot, but I do think that the changes to Fault Line, to Aftershock, and even to the Rolling Thunder really make up for the lack of power in the flashes. The flashes are obviously still great for Breach, but they're not as competitive as they used to be, certainly when you include agents like Skye that can get information off of her flashes, and then of course KO and everything he can do, as well as all of the other different agents that have their own unique flashes. Power has been bestowed into Breach in his unique areas, and I'm really glad to see that. Whether he gets picked more, I think he's going to be underappreciated because it's Breach. He's always underappreciated. So yeah, like, I'm curious of what you guys think. Brimstone, we can highlight this one quickly. The incendiary price has gone up, no other changes. Kinda sad to see because Brimstone definitely needs a little bit more love. But in all honesty, change the other controllers around him and then see how he does from that point. Cypher, similarly, you can sum it up very quickly. The neural theft has been decreased from 7 ult orbs to 6. We highlighted this before. I really like this change. Neural theft is a good ultimate, but it's not a round winning ultimate. It just helps you win it more, if that makes sense. And considering all of the stuff with KO, the fact that they haven't touched these true Sentinel characters, I suppose you could call it, with Cypher and Killjoy all that much, says a lot. But we'll discuss that in another video. Effectively, Cypher and Killjoy players are going to have it rough this patch. Even Sage players, I think, too, with KO. But I do think that there is power in these agents that people will realize as soon as we start playing. Jett's changes, very easy to highlight. We've highlighted them mostly before. The updraft price has gone up. The cloudburst price has gone up too on the smokes. No other changes there, which is quite interesting to highlight. The tailwind no longer breaks Cypher's trapwire, which I think is another reason why Cypher and Killjoy actually go up a bit in their power level. And Bladestorm, 6 ult orbs to 7 now. A necessary change, but considering the operator price was nerfed, I can still see Jett in play. Nobody else is like her in the game, and so yeah, we'll see on that front. Maybe some other duelists come into the fold a little bit more, but frankly, I still think Jett is the best agent in her field, and nobody really comes close, even with these nerfs. Killjoy, we said, didn't have any changes, at least noticeable ones from our previous video. That isn't true. Actually, the cooldown on her alarm bot and turret has gone up from 7 seconds to 20 on the alarm bot and 10 seconds to 20 on the turret, meaning that this is after you pick them up. If they get destroyed, obviously it's a little bit longer, but it does mean that Killjoy can't instantly rotate around as quickly as she could before. I think this is also a lot to do with KO coming into the game, just because he has the ability to shut down a lot of her utility, so Killjoy has to really dedicate and work around the spot in particular, instead of having the room to move around herself and her utility more often than before, I suppose. So this change really anchors her down to a site, which is what she should be doing, but it is going to make it very difficult to play up against good KO players. There's no way you're going to be. Next up, Omen, Paranoia. The cost has been decreased, no other changes. We've highlighted that. That cover, you get 1 signature ability. You have to buy a second charge for 100 credits in order to get it, and the cooldown on the smokes has been increased from 35 to 40. Shrouded Step has also had its price increased from 100 to 150. Considering the strong changes to Astra, I do think that Omen's popularity is going to go up. I think a lot of players really enjoy playing him and more of a high tempo playstyle. Now that Paranoia is back to its original strength, there should be some really nice competition between Omen and Astra. Brimstone, because of those lack of changes, I don't think is going to be played all that much other than in signature compositions on certain maps for the pro scene. So yeah, let's see how this goes, but Omen versus Astra is certainly the biggest talking point for me going into the future patch, and also for stuff like stage 3 of the VCT to see what they do. Phoenix's curveball has gone up in price from 200 to 250. Considering that's his only change, I do think his popularity might surge just a little bit more. Who knows, maybe even taking that spot away from Jett on a team to play in that style. But obviously you're not going to see a Phoenix ult player in the pro scene, so not likely in that sense. We'll have to see, but yeah, Phoenix pretty decent right now. For Raze, she's actually had a model update with a Polish pass is what it says. The boombox price has gone up to 400 and the showstopper from 7 ult orbs to 8. We've gone over this. Raze has been hit quite hard. I do think she's still good to be pretty okay. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, but Raze, it's going to be just more of an expensive endeavor, but you will still have the same impact that you would usually. It just might take a round more or two to get your ultimate, for example. So yeah, I don't think it's as bad for Raze players, but it's certainly a nerf. There's no other way of looking at it. Reyna's lair has been increased from 200 to 250 credits. That is the only change. Whether there could have been more, I don't know, but don't rock the boat with Reyna is what I think. Sage, the slow orb, the barrier orb, and the resurrection have all had their prices increased. The slow orb from 100 to 200. The barrier orb, we didn't highlight this because I thought this was 400 for some reason. It's gone from 300 to 400, and the resurrect 7 to 8 all orbs. Sage is still great, a great agent to have on the field. Another one of the dozens of nerfs that she's had, but that's just because the whole economy's changed. Not necessarily that Sage herself is too strong in the game, but I'll leave you for that to decide. But again, I'm curious on what you guys think. I think this is fine as somebody to play Sage. I can live with this. Moving on to Skye, her Trailblazer cost has gone up from 200 to 250. We've spoken about that before, but the other two changes we didn't. The vision radius has been increased on the Trailblazer from 1750 to 2250. In layman's terms, this just means that you could see a little bit more with your nearsightedness, making it stronger, and the concussion duration by being hit by the actual tiger has gone up from 3 to 4. Not really that noticeable, but you are going to get a lot more out of Trailblazer overall, I feel, and it hasn't had its price increased half as much as a Boombot or an Aldron. So Skye players, you take those. Guardian Light has had its charges reduced from 3 to 2. The charges now replenish over a 40-second cooldown. Skye no longer needs to re-equip to trigger her flash, which is another big change we missed. You can keep your gun out. You can instantly peek off your flashes going through. It means that Skye is going to be a lot more scarier, and I can't wait to see some of the best Skye players in the world really find impact with her, because that's really nice. Guardian Light's projectile now goes around corners tighter when free flying and is more responsive to guiding, so it should just be a lot better in your hands. The audio attenuation when cast has been reduced, meaning that basically it's going to be hard for the enemy team to hear the flash coming by, which again is a massive change that you wouldn't have been able to notice unless you actually saw the patch notes or played the agent for 100 games maybe, but of course the price has gone up quite a lot. I think Skye's a big winner here. There's a lot in her kit to just make it more expensive, but those abilities have also been buffed a considerable amount. I will disagree with anybody that says that Skye has been nerfed in this patch. I think that considering she's gone up, Breach is still a bit of a to be determined moment, and also with Sova, with all of this utility that we've highlighted going up in price, Skye is now the strongest initiator out of the three at least that we have right now. KO as well, I think, is another to be determined. But the competition between all four of those agents is incredibly ripe, and I can't wait to see, at least I hope to see, a lot of variation from pro teams or in ranked to see multiple people pick any of these agents up and have a lot of fun with them. We're very much in the initiator meta, not because they're all super oppressive and you want to run 4 of them on your team, I mean imagine that, but more so that it's like a golden age for them, and I can't wait to see them all play out. Viper's Snakebite has had its price increased, its duration decreased from 8 to 6.5, and the outer edges of Viper's Acid Patch form faster to ensure it is lethal damage if an enemy sits in the entire duration, making sure that post-plant lineups still have impact and it's still lethal and strong, but obviously a lot shorter and a lot more expensive. Finally, Yoru Blindside, the cost has been increased from 200 to 250. A Gate Crash alongside all of the other signature abilities has had its cooldown increased from 35 seconds to 40. For those waiting for the Yoru buff video that the devs have spoken about, it will probably come tomorrow or Thursday, so keep an eye out for that. Basically, to spice it up, the devs are saying they're playing with effectively a bit of a newer version of Yoru with some noticeable changes, and they're playing with smiles on their faces is what Raikou said. So yeah, more information on that over the next couple of days, so like and subscribe if you want to see that video come out fairly soon. So that is all of the agent changes. Now we move on to the weapons. Most of these we know about, but there's a lot of changes to running and gunning, and also stuff like tagging and dead zoning as the devs call it. Bullet tagging has changed from a 75% slow to 72.5% slow, and tagging is the slowing effect that you feel when you're hit by a bullet. So this is a lot less scary. When you get hit by a bullet, you're slowed less, but you're still slowed quite a lot. It will break your momentum, but just enough. I think basically what this change is, if you don't understand it, is if you tag an enemy when you shoot them, they slow down a lot, which is what these changes are, to the point where you effectively stop in some cases, meaning that you're 100% accurate, meaning that you can just turn and dome this person on the head with full accuracy when the other person might not have it. So whilst it doesn't seem like much, this is going to change how the game feels a dramatic amount when you're in duels. But also we have changes to the weapon dead zone, which has been changed from 30% to 27.5. And dead zoning in Valorant refers to the movement speed a player becomes inaccurate. So if you go over that threshold, you start to become inaccurate, and that threshold has been brought in a little bit, probably to coincide with the bullet tagging changes to give it a bit of give or take. So I hope that makes sense as we move on to the changes to all of the rifles when it comes to running and gunning, or more walking and gunning overall. This is important to highlight. Another thing that the devs mentioned in Q&As and on streams is just that they've looked at running inaccuracy, as we'll highlight, but also walking inaccuracy is something that they really wanted to work on because some guns were way too strong. So going on to the rifles, the walking inaccuracy has been changed from 1.3 to 2. Running has been not changed at all because they took a pass at that before. Heavy weapons, running and Odining is still kind of hard to do, but walking and using an Odin or an Ares is going to be a lot less accurate, as you're seeing on screen. For SMGs, they've taken a pass at both. Running inaccuracy has gone up with the SMG more so than any other gun at this point. The walking inaccuracy has also been tripled from 0.3 to 1. Classic, both walking and running inaccuracy has been upped. And then we get onto the guns that have also had some price decreases, including the Frenzy. The Frenzy has gone from 500 to 450. The walking inaccuracy has tripled effectively, and running inaccuracy is doubled too. It's a lot harder to hit with this gun, and it certainly was noticeable with stuff like the Stinger as well with the SMGs. The Ghost hasn't had a price change, but the walking inaccuracy and running inaccuracies changed. The Sheriff has also had it done, basically everything. But as we move on to some of the other guns, we highlight the Judge, which has had its price increased, but also the damage fall off from a 10 and 15 meter range has gone from 13 to 10 at 10 meters and 10 to 7 at 15. You can see it on screen in case I sound kind of confusing. Because yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on and I've been talking non-stop for 20 minutes, but we're almost done. One of the big changes to the Bulldog is the hip fire, the non-ADS mode. The firing rate is being increased from 9.15 to 9.5. Doesn't seem like much, but it's definitely noticeable. And it's also had its price decreased. Bulldogs might be a good half-buy weapon, and yeah, I definitely recommend giving it a try when we get this patch. And then the other guns haven't had any changes to running and gunning by any stretch other than the ones that we highlighted before, but the Shorties had its price changed to 150 from 200. The Stinger's also had its price decreased from 1,100 to 950. The Bucky's gone down 900 to 850, Marshall 1000 to 950, Ares not from 1600 to 3200, ignore that, but it was 1600 to 1550, and the Operator, the price decreased from 5000 to 4700. But of course, there's more to talk about here. The competitive update side, we highlighted it in a video yesterday, so I don't want to repeat it here, but changes to MMR locking for older accounts, I guess is what they called it, changes to placements, and of course, all of that cool stuff with the clash system that's coming soon, TM. Check in the previous video. Let's talk about the performance updates that are also coming that the devs up until now haven't spoken about. Players with medium to high spec machines may see up to 6% performance improvement as a result of the following work: to clipping plane calculations, to thread utilization across multiple cores for distributed tasks, camera calculations, ambient audio, and general optimizations for all ability animations. Probably had a lot to do with the no patch that happened a couple of weeks ago, where they actually updated to a new engine. A lot of that will fix these performance changes, so yeah, I know a lot of people were asking about that. Seems to be good news overall. Social updates: the hover cards have been added to the social panel, where you can hover over your friends list to quickly learn more about the players you have added, rank, account level, riot ID, friend note, title, player card, and more. And you can also invite people to your party into custom games with just their riot ID, meaning that you don't need to add them. That's only a good thing overall. Also, a new thing coming for tournament mode custom games is a round rollback feature. It allows you to set the game back to the start of the previous round and replay the game from starting there. A big thing that the devs needed for stage 2, so it's nice to see that it is in this mode. And yeah, it's actually in the game that we can use with, which I'm a big fan of. And yeah, that's all of the patch changes other than highlighting bug fixes and also dev comments, because I didn't want this video to be too long overall. Maybe I've got time to highlight a couple of important ones to mention, but I also wanted to get this video out as soon as possible. So yeah, thanks for watching. Keep an eye out for the Yoru buff video and also some map changes that might be coming in. So yeah, a couple of days time we'll have that video with what the dev said. And thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you next time.